The Nike VaporFly Next Percent 3. Is this the ultimate race day shoe? Let's talk about it. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed watching content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates. And without further ado, let's begin. Specs for the shoe somewhere up here. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and talk about the outsoles of the shoe. Just heads up as we're going over this review. I am a little bit sick, so I have a little bit of a congestion, but we'll get through it. So yeah, that's what's going on with the left foot. This is what's going on the right foot overall between both shoes. We'll give you another left, another right, and then we'll just kind of break into it right away. So another thing worth addressing besides congestion is that I am working through a runner's knee type of injury, I suppose. We're almost at the light at the end of the tunnel, which is good news. But in the process of running and just kind of grinding through that recovery process, I put in a few more miles on the shoe than I would have liked to. And as a result, I did skip the 100+ mile review. So we're kind of up to the 150. So whatever. I mean, we're not going to miss anything too much at the 100+ at this point. So yeah. Let's kind of get into it. First things worth noting, I guess we'll talk about the right shoe as a start. As you can probably expect, as I've discussed a couple of times in terms of talking about this shoe, is that the rubber on the outsole is much more thin than the predecessor from the VaporFly Next Percent 2 or the 1 in this case. It's running just a lighter strip in this particular area of the shoe, and as a result, I predicted it would wear out a little bit quicker, and you would get into the ZoomX foam of this shoe at a higher rate, and as a result, you would begin feeling some of that damage as you would start running. So from what I see here, the areas of the foot that I expected to flatten out are beginning to flatten out a little bit. The lugs are still there, they're still visible, the pattern's there, but they're not as profound as they were historically, right? In the forefoot area of the shoe, there is a bit of wear here as well, and at 150+ miles, I was expecting a little bit more damage in terms of what I was seeing, but there is like one major caveat to this whole thing, and that is because I wasn't running outside nearly as much and focusing more of those miles on the treadmill. The wear of the shoe is a little bit more forgiving. And this is the case when a lot of people through the videos tell me things like, I don't know, they'll say the shoe could last 300, 400, 500+ miles, but what happens as a result is a lot of those miles from those people typically end up being on the treadmill, or they have a different running form that caters more to the shoe's type of wear, right? So as a result, the wear is a little bit different here than historically, at least for myself, because I like to do a lot of my miles outside. I like to tear this thing through all sorts of conditions, gravel, road, rain, mud, you name it. But in this case, kind of limited based on the impacts I want to perform on my knee at this time. So that's kind of what's going on with the right foot. In the left foot, the one that's been kind of experiencing the impact, the only real damage I can see at this point is just kind of higher up in the mid to forefoot area of the shoe, and it's kind of just wearing out on the lugs again. As expected, there is a bit more kind of grinding here, probably from previous outdoor runs where I may have been running into some gravel, and as a result, there's areas of the ZoomX that kind of like pop out in the rubber, I guess, format of the shoe, the design, which are kind of obviously beaten up a lot more than the rubber itself. It's just kind of a design feature, and just expected that the ZoomX's areas would be kind of popped, I guess you can say. The good news here is that I guess overall it's very much still usable. It's pretty beaten up, that's all. In the, in this forefoot heel area where there's like less rubber and more of just the foam exposed, again, it is more smoothened out, as you can probably see, and that's just kind of by design of running on a treadmill where you have kind of the marbling of different shoes and just kind of like a repetition of the same kind of materials, right? Just that smoothness of the treadmill in addition to polishing of the shoes. Just the whole pattern there is kind of the result of what we see here on, again, both of the shoes in this context. Yep, they're both pretty much kind of shiny in that area. And it is what it is. We're just going to be expecting a little bit of a different wear than historically on some of these shoes, and in this particular case, that's just kind of where we're sitting here with the outsoles. Kind of a long-winded explanation for the outsoles, but it is what it is. Other things to note, in the upper, I complained about the upper historically being a little bit wider and not as, like streamlined and gripped as the VaporFly Next Percent 1 and 2 was. And again, I don't hate that nearly as much as I do. I'm kind of extending an olive branch to the overall upper design of this shoe. The breathability is there, and I'm learning to kind of just get used to it. The one complaint I have about the shoe, I think, was in either my left foot or my right foot. I'm trying to remember now. I think it was my left foot. Early on with the runner's knee, when I was trying to jump into this shoe for some miles, I would get some kind of swelling in my foot, and as a result, the shoe would tighten in the spots where you would expect the tightness to kind of develop. And that, as a result, causes me to stop my runs on the treadmill, loosen up the shoe. As you can see, it's been loosened up a lot. Loosen up the shoe and just continue running from that point. And it's like partially because of the way the shoelaces are lined up. It's partially the way the toe box width compared to my actual foot sort of play together, where there's more width in this shoe than my foot is, willing to work with. So as a result, the foot kind of moves around and can't really find its place in the shoe, and as a result, that's kind of what's happening as well. So yeah, just something interesting to note, of course, from that experience with the upper being a little bit less streamlined than its predecessor. Other things to note is that the Zoom X on the interior side of the shoes are beginning to take those, those wrinkle lines as we're going along, so the foam is taking a beating at this point in time, and it's finding its stress points even with the carbon plate in the shoe. The foam is just beginning to stress with this pronation, especially on the inside of this particular foot. And on this shoe, kind of the same story, as you can see. And yeah, same thing on the outsole, or on the outside of the Zoom X rubber here. But yeah, I am very much interested in what's kind of going on in this area, as it's not just necessarily wrinkling more, but it is also experiencing some kind of like debris or wear, or some kind of glue ripping off potentially, which could be as a result of a manufacturing thing. Maybe, this part of the shoe is just going to rip first, which is likely from the looks of what I'm seeing. I don't think it's ripped yet, but the upper material is pretty solid, like from what I see. Again, I'll like pull this just a little bit, we can see it. But would it be the first part to tear? Historically, if we were to run on that evidence, I would say no, but there's never a bad time to have a first time with this type of shoe. Again, historically, I've always ripped the outsides of the shoe first. I think in my Alpha Flies, I've probably ripped the insides. I'm going to have to watch that video again. It was either the inside here or it was the outside of the shoe. And then in my Boston 11s from Adidas, I definitely ripped the outsides of both shoes because the uppers just kind of got a fracture point, figuratively speaking, in that particular area of the shoe. Now, overall, the question of this video is, VaporFly Next Percent 3 for race day, is it the shoe you buy? Well, it depends, as I usually answer in all of these videos. What shoes are available to you, right? Do you have an AlphaFly available to you? AlphaFly Next Percent 2, 3? Do you have the VaporFly 1, 2 also as an option in your arsenal? And do you like running in the VaporFly Next Percent 3 overall? Because this is Nike's new generation VaporFly race day shoe, or as it's marketed to be. But for me personally, and this is just kind of where I give you my anecdotes, again, don't take this as like the rule of law, this is just how I'm utilizing the shoe right now, is I have a VaporFly Next Percent 2 that I use for race day because I like running in that shoe. I'm comfortable in that shoe. I've had a lot of experience in that shoe, and it's a streamlined piece of art for me to run in. Whereas the VaporFly Next Percent 3, in this particular context, I was talking about it early on that the shoe just didn't have a place in my lineup. It wasn't a good race day shoe. It wasn't a good daily running shoe. But at this point, it has a unique place in my lineup as a shoe that's a little bit stiff, but also provides a little extra bounce for my daily speed workout kinds of things. So unfortunately, it is replacing the Tempo Next Percent in my daily training lineups as the everyday race day speed kind of shoe. And it's also a shoe that I'm kind of familiar with in terms of the overall feel with a carbon plate and having that Zoom X foam combination on a daily run. So again, with the knee in particular, I'm staying away from like using soft foams and that kind of sink into the shoe and then rebound. A lot of people that I've watched videos for say that we should be using softer shoes when it comes to like running knee and like potential meniscus injuries. But based on what I've been feeling, like using something like the Hoka Mach 5 or one of my other soft shoes that I have in my lineup, I gotta remember what that shoe was. They're not comfortable, and for some reason they'd hurt the knee a lot more than I would like to admit. Whereas when I've used the Boston 12, which is a plastic carbon plate shoe, and the VaporFly Next Percent 3 and the VaporFly Next Percent 2, which are actual carbon plate technology shoes, the knee actually feels a lot better. And it's probably because my knee doesn't have to bend down, or I don't have to sink nearly as much to compensate for the fact that my knee can't flex, and the shoe is able to give me that additional bounce that otherwise could be produced from the knee bending a little bit more. I don't know if that explanation makes sense. When I have my runner's knee recovery video, I'll kind of break that down a lot more, but overall, this shoe has a unique spot for my speed workouts as I'm leading into turkey trot season, which is still a go from the way things are kind of looking with my knee, but, you know, we still need some time, I guess we could say. So, overall thoughts of the VaporFly Next Percent 3. If you have it as a race day shoe, it'll do the job. It's just, I think there's some better options still out there. It doesn't even have to be in the Nike family. If you want like a shoe like the Rocket X, that's kind of got similar, I guess, overall specs to the VaporFly Next Percent 3, where it's like running a slightly wider shoe. It's got the carbon plate. If you want the Metaspeed Sky, kind of the same concept. The shoe's a little bit wider, has the carbon plate. So there's other options, and there's other, I guess, alternative and means to go from the Nike brand if you believed in the Nike shoe, and then they kind of threw this at you and said, this is what you're racing with, and you're thinking, I don't think so. This is like not a good race day shoe. This is like, I'm running in this thing and it feels flat, which a lot of people have actually told me in person. Just whether it's accident or they've been doing like Ironman races during this like late summer, early fall season. And yeah, not a lot of people love this shoe. One of those people being me, but there is a place for it. And in the kind of grand scheme of having an everyday speed type of shoe, this kind of fits that mold, unfortunately, because it's a very expensive, comparatively speaking, everyday speed kind of shoe. So, if you agree or disagree with the assessment, let me know in the comments below. But again, if you own this shoe and you have like a different experience, or you think that the shoe is like the ultimate race day shoe, I want to hear about it. But for the most part, that's kind of just where I stand with the shoe. Like, it's just kind of blocky. It's not the worst thing I've ever run in, but I know Nike has produced better, and it's kind of sad watching the product kind of degrade over time. So that's kind of where I sit with it. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.